Well, I was surprised that they took some time on a couple of those points there, like throwing out the Iranian ambassador and also refusing to recognise the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist group. Well, they're doing it now, but slow. But doesn't this also underline that Israel's fight is ours as well?
Well, yes, and I think this is where there's some difficulty for the Albanese government, because if they're not joining the dots about Iran and its threat not just to Israel, but to the wider world, everyone else will be. So the IRGC, the Iranian Republican Guard Corps, the same outfit that has planned these violent attacks on shore, is at the heart of the Iranian regime's pursuit of nuclear weapons, and it's the organization that has built and backed Hezbollah and Hamas and funded and equipped the Houthis. So the authoritarian regime in Iran is a problem not just for the Middle East, but for Australia as well.
I'm talking about joining the dots. I want to ask you about something that you raised with me before earlier today. China. So here we've got the government saying, all right, we're finally getting tough on Iran, out with the ambassador, interfering in Australian soil. China, though, we've got a court case in Canberra of a woman charged for allegedly spying on Chinese Australians on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing, obviously. We've also got China having bounties for the arrest of Chinese Australian citizens here, or Chinese in Australia. That's foreign interference. Why isn't the Chinese ambassador also frog marched out?
Well, Andrew, you're spot on. This is more joining the dots time for the government. So if we should expel the Iranian ambassador and 3 Iranian diplomats because the Iranian government has been planning and conducting criminal acts on Australian soil, well, that court case going on in Canberra right now says that the Chinese government has been behind planning and tasking criminal acts in Australia. And those Hong Kong bounties on people living peacefully in Australia are another example that goes straight to the government in Beijing. So do we have a different standard for how we're treating the Chinese ambassador and Chinese diplomats to how we're treating the Iranians?
And let me underline again that Iran and China are part of an alliance with North Korea and Russia that is threatening the West now. Let's not treat them as discrete entities in one sense. And this makes it really part of a dangerous world now, Michael. Like this alliance of tyrannies, we've talked about it before, Russia, China, North Korea and Iran, and how the Albanese government is, in my opinion at least, not taking it seriously enough. We've now got even more evidence that our biggest ever investment in Australia's defence, the 3 or more nuclear subs that we are buying from America, is in real trouble. The confusion today, I have to say, is extraordinary. You had Defence Minister Richard Marles announcing on Sunday he was dashing off suddenly to see Donald Trump's Defence Secretary, Pete Hegseth, whose department is now reviewing whether the US can even afford to sell us their submarines, it's so short of its submarines of its own, and whether it can trust us with them. Like, will we come to America's aid with those subs should it all hit the fan? But when Marles got to Washington overnight, he found no meeting had been locked in, although he will now see the US Secretary of State. And this comes, of course, after multiple warnings from US officials and now a former top Pentagon official that we don't spend enough on defence to make this deal work. And the US needs more concrete commitments from us that we're going to stand by the US in war. What is going on?
Well, Andrew, isn't it amazing? We hear from the government, from the Prime Minister down, but from Richard Marles repeatedly, how close their relations are with the Trump administration and with senior figures in the Pentagon. In fact, Richard Marles has said he's spoken frequently with the Pentagon Secretary, Pete Hegseth, and that's why he's sure that AUKUS is in such great shape. It turns out that he may not even be able to get a meeting with the Pentagon chief when he's flown to Washington. So something doesn't add up. If everything is humming like a top between our government and the US government, what the hell is going on with this visit. But the more serious thing I think this shows us is Washington just isn't that in to the Australian government. They're not making it a priority to meet with our Deputy Prime Minister. AUKUS is more important to us than it is to America, and our government seems to have failed to notice that.
It's just extraordinary. I found it amazing that the head of BHP, the head of Rio Tinto, they could get a meeting in Donald Trump's White House office the other day. Our Prime Minister has not been able to achieve the same.
Could it be?
Michael Shoebridge, thank you so much.
Could it be, Andrew, that Mr. Miles hasn't got a big enough set of suitcases full of Australian cash to hand over to the Pentagon this time? He's only come with one bag.
That could be the case too. Michael Shoebridge, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.